This is a prophetic perspective. One of the famous names in the Bible is of the name Nebuchadnezzar, and he was a king of Babylon, and that was an empire that arose after the Assyrians. Okay, and also the Assyrians. Now, when you read specifically in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 27, and especially verse 8, it says that, and any nation that will not submit to Nebuchadnezzar, it will be destroyed. In other words, any nation that does not lower its neck and submit to Babylon, which was the hegemony at the day, would be in outright disobedience and in a rebellion against God. And so God was advising the Jews that were rebelling and fighting against Nebuchadnezzar at Jerusalem during the reign of King Zedekiah. And he told them, submit. If you do not submit, you will be consumed, you will be destroyed. This is the perspective. So, as far as God is concerned, God's idea of leadership or rulership on earth is about hegemonies. It is about empires. So he raises an empire and then he uses that empire as a stick, as a hammer to crush, to destroy. Yes, it is as simple as that, to bring judgment. And that's what he has always done. So he used the Assyrians at one moment. And so you read the book of Kings and the chronicles of the kings of Israel, and then you will find the Assyrians there. So whenever the nations went astray and they veered so off the course of being normal, for example, God always raised the nation to destroy them. At one time, it was actually the nation of Israel when they came up from the land of Egypt. You know, often people have said that God is genocidal, that he commanded the killing of babies and infants and all that kind of stuff, man and women, and wiping out entire civilizations. And so they've always leveled that accusation against them, and they have quoted First Samuel somewhere there. They've quoted that one where God gives a command and says that go and destroy man and child, woman, cattle and sheep and all that kind of stuff. And so they have always often said that, can't you see that he's genocidal, that he's a killing, is a killing God. That makes sense if you do not know the entirety of the story about the Amalekites. Because what happens is that God gave them 400 years to straighten out their crap. So when he is talking to Abraham, he tells him that your descendants will be in the land of Egypt, in that nation, and they will be slaves, they will be enslaved 400 years. And after 400 years, that he would punish that king. And the reason why God decides to take the children of Abraham or the Jews to stay in Egypt for 400 years was because the sin of the nations had not yet risen to a level that was unacceptable. So, from that we learn that he is actually good and is a God of judgment. He will not destroy or punish except that there is grounds or there is cause for it. So that's what he tells the Jews. He tells Abraham that your descendants will be in the land of Egypt for 400 years. Now, fast forward, we see that the Assyrians arise. And the nation of Israel, whenever they veered away from following God, there is another nation that God always brought upon them as a punishment, as a scourge upon them. And so we find the Assyrians. But the most notable ones are the Babylonians, because the Babylonians end up carrying the Jews from Jerusalem for 70 years. And Jeremiah chapter 27, verse 8, he says that, and any nation that will not serve him will be in direct rebellion against God. And that's how it has always been. So when they sinned still against God and they missed the day of their visitation, what did he do? And by the day of their visitation, I mean the moment when they missed Jesus Christ. They did not see him as their Messiah. Instead, they chose to kill him. Okay, they rejected him. They knew. They knew that he was from God. But they chose to kill him, the leaders of the people. And what happened? The Romans descended upon them in 70 AD, destroyed Jerusalem, burnt the temple, and did rooting. But they still insisted on being rebellious. Okay? Why? Because they read in the Bible and they see the promises of God that they are forever and all that kind of stuff. But they did not understand the counsel of God, that the times have been apportioned and have been given to the Roman Empire because they were the hegemony at the moment. And so, despite being the descendants or the people of God, they got defeated and they were beaten. And so they were driven out of the land between Zit 130 to 136 AD. There was a civil war, the Kokuba Wars, and whatever it is. So they were driven out of the land until of recent when they have gone back and they have been established. Now, what is very interesting is that there is another nation that rose up against them and resisted them in the recent times. They have spent a lifetime, 4 decades, if we must say, or 5 decades, and that is the nation of Iran. But look at what is happening to them. Those Jews are dangerous. If they are in their right seasons, standing in their right place, where God expects them to stand, and you rise up against them, a curse will come upon your land. So the Iranians, from environmental disasters, a prolonged drought, it's madness and the chaos that is going on there. They have never ceased to chant death to Israel. Okay, so hegemony, current times, contemporary times, we have America. I know very many of you have been saying America is declining. Very many of you have been saying, yeah, China is the thing. No, it is not. It is not. It is not. Even the rise of China, as the Lord spoke to me some time back and I shared elsewhere in the video, the rise, I was also of the view I didn't like them because of communism and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And their persecution against Christians. But then he made me to understand that it is for a reason that they were raised, that they were prospered, that they might be a blessing to the rest of the world, even when they do not know it. And so, in a way, they have been useful to the kingdom of God because literally almost every handset, the technologies that we're using, the chips and all that kind of stuff, the phones, they have created these things, the computers, every component, literally every component that you will find in a laptop can be found in Shenzhen and in China. So in that way, they have been a blessing, double-edged, although, okay. So people have been talking of China, the rise of China, then they've been talking the rise of Russia. Is it de-dollarization, and then there is the global South, and then there is BRICS. They are not going to. You see, it is not in you. You may plan, but the counsel of God will always stand. And America, being the seventh heel or the seventh head of the beast, is not going to fall simply because the Chinese said America must fall, simply because some nations in Africa came together and they gathered themselves and they said, now, well, we are going to take on America, and so we shall dispossess them from being the superpower. No, it is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Superpowers are not made by just human-made factors and circumstances. There is always a spirit behind a superpower. There is always a spirit behind a hegemony, an empire. There is always a spirit behind a civilization. You see, but and especially now, it is so. You see, what usually happens with these civilizations, unlike America, is that they become arrogant and so proud, and they think it was their strength that did it all. And usually, what God does is that He turns around and then He also destroys them and He judges them. I'm not saying that America will not be judged, but there is something unique about America. Especially, it's because of the righteous people who pray for that nation. There is not a nation that has been a blessing to the body of Jesus Christ more than the nation of America. There is not. They have funded the gospel. They have produced some of the finest teachers, the prophets, the apostles, ministers of the gospel around the world. So they have been a blessing. Of course, the wicked people, the wickedness in the land will be punished because innocent blood has been shed through the movement that calls itself My Body, My Choice, and all that kind of stuff, and the perversions that have been pushing upon the world. But now that there is a righteous man, as I saw some time back, that the land would rejoice, the righteous would rejoice. It is true. The righteous all over the world are rejoicing. So what happened with Maduro, with Venezuela, that is what a hegemony, an unappointed police of the world appointed by God does. So you might ask that who appointed America to be the police? It is God. It is God who appointed them. and they will do and they will prosper. You will cry and nothing will happen.